Hi, I'm Louise Marler, and this is our Thursday Live at 12:30, where I analyse people or events in the media to see what we can actually learn back from that. So a little 10-minute maximum analysis. And today I'm focusing on Scott Morrison's response to the Chinese Twitter, the fake Twitter photo about the SAS, and what we can learn from that. Now, I was in the park one day, and there was a father with a child, and that child went over to a dog, and the dog became vicious, and it was a very dangerous situation. And the father went over and rescued the child, and after he'd got the child back, he went absolutely berserk. He was screaming at this child, and he was shaking the child, and he was just furious. And I thought, that's unusual. I don't know that's quite the right response. The child had had enough stress. He hadn't done anything wrong. But of course, the father was very angry. And what he did was he reacted. And we all know that you need to respond, not react. And that when you're in leadership, this is one of your critical skills. So I put it to you, be careful to react, not respond. And I wonder if you could help me about Scott Morrison's reaction, because it was a little bit confusing. First of all, Mr. Morrison said that he would be making a brief statement. Well, it was actually 7 minutes, 22 seconds. So it wasn't that brief. And he started off with a greeting, a little bit about the admin of the situation, and then described what had gone on with this Twitter. Now, how do I know that he was angry? Well, he starts off, his breathing is distressed. He goes on and then continues the sentence. Very odd. He actually clicked his glasses on in the beginning as if to say, right, down to business. You'll find that only his lower jaw was working and that his face was dropped and just his lower jaw was working. At one stage, he snarled his upper lip. Actually, not just at one stage, at several stages, the upper lip snarled. And when he finished sentences, he had his teeth clenched and he said, this Twitter was truly repugnant. Like this. The jaw came out. The jaw, of course, is our way of expressing aggression. Through the joint here, we push that forward, very common for aggression. And at times the eyes went tight for anger. He couldn't breathe. So we got short, sharp bursts of sentences. Not only that, we got overcompensated consonants, plosives, and he got to speak, but only his mouth moved sometimes. He couldn't find the words. He couldn't find the words, just the lips moved. And when he said young, he went threateningly young, and the mouth went massively sideways. Then he struggled to find the Chinese name, Mr. Zhao, I think, which is a little bit derogatory. And his eyes darted left and right at one stage. So he also used the words repugnant, and he said the Chinese government should be totally ashamed. So it wasn't hard to see that Mr. Morrison was angry. So let's have a look at that. I will share the screen. I'll share the screen and just show you a few seconds of what went on. Share the screen. Not this one, team, but this one.
Post made today, the repugnant post made today of an image, a falsified image, of an Australian soldier threatening a young child with a knife, a post made on an official Chinese government Twitter account,
official Chinese
posted by the
Twitter.
Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Lijian Zhao, is truly repugnant. It is deeply offensive to every Australian who has served in that uniform.
Okay, so there is an angry man. So I ask myself when I'm watching this, for whom is this post? And I thought to myself, is this for the Chinese government? Surely not. These are people who recently spoke of Tiananmen Square as a handled upset. And I did think Australia to China is like the equivalent of Tuvalu. Now, if you haven't heard of Tuvalu, it's actually the smallest country of the world, made up of 6 coral atolls. And Tuvalu telling Australia that it was very cross. And I thought, yeah, no, clearly this is not for the Chinese. Who is this for? This short, brief statement is being made for angry Australians and enraged army personnel. And I thought, good, okay, well, that's probably great. And then we followed on with the actions, and Mr. Morrison told us we are seeking an apology from China, we're seeking the removal of the post, and we are asking Twitter to take it down. Now, that you would think would be the end of this brief statement, and it should have ended at 2 minutes and 20 seconds. But hang on, it goes on. So now we had a very clear change of mode into a lecturing mode. And Mr. Morrison tells us that Australia has patiently sought to deal in a mature way, in a responsible way. I'm thinking, does that mean China didn't? Like, what is the implication here? And the voice becomes very sing-songy. And suddenly I'm thinking, wow, we have changed audience. We're no longer speaking to Australians. We're speaking to China, and we're lecturing them. And we hear that defensive, terrible, offensive post. I would call on China to re-engage with this dialogue. And I did see a conflict there, because I thought, how do you lecture and expect people to re-engage? And then to use a word like must. This is how countries must deal with each other. And I found myself reeling with the word must when we are talking to China. Now, I'm not a Chinese expert. And despite the fact that I find a lot humorous in Kevin Rudd's mode of communication, I do listen to Kevin Rudd. And I think that Kevin Rudd knows a bit about China, and he has said this is not the way to deal. And I did find myself on listening to this thinking, oops. So I don't know if you thought the same thing. Then we change the mode again within this brief statement that's not very brief to a conciliatory approach. So suddenly we get changed to things like hopefully, and in the body language, the face lightens up, lifts up. There's a lot of blinking with the eyes, softening, and we get Mr. Morrison's sing-songy type of voice. So let's have a listen to that, just a few seconds of the sing-songy voice, so you know what I'm talking about. And I press on my other screen, I press play. Play.
But this is not how you deal with it. Australia has patiently sought to seek to address the tensions that exist in our relationship in a mature way, in a responsible way, by seeking engagement at both leader and ministerial level to ensure that we can openly discuss what are clear sources of tension in this relationship. Points that Australia feel strongly about in terms of our own sovereignty and our own independence. The way to deal with those is by engaging directly in discussion and dialogue between ministers and leaders.
So suddenly...
And despite this terribly offensive post today...
So suddenly we're not speaking in verse, we're actually doing a smoother, and we're going up and down, and it's completely different. And I find that very confusing. We then moved on to the global significance, that it's not just about Australia, it's about other countries. And we're adding the weight of a global significance. And let's see how that actually worked. Share, play.
Now it's not just about Australia.
Now it's not just about Australia.
Countries around the world are watching this. They're seeing.
Now it's not just about Australia. countries around the world. And I found that a little bit primary schoolish, as though we were primary school, and that was very different to the anger with which we began. So during this very short, not very short display, we had anger that moved on to lecturing, that moved on to joyful. We moved from addressing Australians to actually addressing China. Now, I put it to you that this was a reaction, not a response, that there was not enough thought about who this was for and what it was for. I'd also like to say you wouldn't want to be a leader in today's world for all the rice in China. If I were Trump, I would just say, you can have the country. I don't know why he doesn't resign. It is too hard. And of course, we all do this. We all want to react, not respond. We all get mixed up with who is our audience and run things on. It's not a criticism. It's just an observation, because we aren't thinking enough about our messages. And in this virtual world, it becomes very important. So I put it to you, please take a little moment to respond, not react, and actually to think about, who am I talking to? How will it help them to make a change in their behaviour? Or will I actually alienate them? Thank you very much.